Off the coast of Patagonia, southern right whales are assembling. The males announce their arrival by gigantic leaps, 100 tons propelled into the air with a flip of the tail. The sound above water is like a cannon shot. Below, it must be felt for miles around.
G'day ladies and gents, and welcome to War Thunder with Mags, and welcome to War Thunder patch 1.57. First things first, apologies if I sound a little croaky today. I've got a little bit of an issue with my voice, but we'll persevere on regardless. And today we're flying out the Sunderland Mk IIIa, the first British-made flying boat to make it into the game, and the first non-premium flying boat in the British tree. It's also the lowest ranked 4-engine heavy bomber the British have access to at rank 1 battle rating 1.7. Now for a 4-engine heavy bomber, the Sunderland is a little bit of an odd duck. She has pilot controlled machine guns, 4 nose mounted 7.7mm Browning machine guns with 2,000 rounds of ammunition, along with 2 dual 7.7mm Browning defensive gunners with 3,000 rounds each, and a single quad 7.7mm gunner with 4,000 rounds. Standard bomb load is 8 250-pound bombs that you get as soon as you get access to the plane, with the option to unlock a single secondary bomb load that gives you access to 4 500-pound bombs. This glorious British whale meanders through the sky at approximately 250 to 300 kilometers an hour in level flight, with a theoretical maximum speed of 380 at 13,000 feet and a maximum altitude of 19,000 feet. However, be very careful about diving too deep too fast. The wing tolerance on this aircraft is only about 400 kilometers an hour. Once you pass that, you may tear off your own wings and very rapidly find yourself beached. So, of course the question remains, exactly how good is this aircraft? Now, the first thing I should probably say is I'm a little bit biased towards the Sunderland in the first place. I actually have a soft spot for flying boats in general. I think they're kind of cool, to be perfectly honest. I don't know why, I just really like them. That said, the honest truth is the Sunderland is not very good, and I'm about to demonstrate why. The Sunderland's primary role is that of a 4-engined level flight heavy bomber. The problem is it doesn't do this job particularly well. Now you'll see my current altitude is 13,000 feet. Now I want you to watch the bomb reticle here very carefully as I release. See, it moves, release the second bomb, it moves again, third and fourth bomb, the reticle moves up. Now we're going to rewind that and we're going to quickly watch it again, this time in slow motion. So, we release the first bomb and the reticle moves down, almost to the bottom of the base target. We release the second bomb and it immediately swings up almost past the target to where we release the third bomb and it moves up slightly. We release the fourth bomb and the reticle slides completely away. Now, first thing to know is I didn't touch the movement controls of the aircraft at all during that bombing run. I'd pre-lined up before I zoomed in for the bomb release, and I'd taken my hands off the controls. I just had my hands on the spacebar. I do this because, well, the plane flies itself in level flight and I do not want to move it. Otherwise I'm going to misdrop bombs. So if that's not me moving the controls, what the hell caused that? Well, to work it out, we've got to look at this Sunderland bomb drop again, in slow motion, but from a slightly different angle. And for this, we need to turn over to the replay system. We're going to have a very close look at exactly how the Sunderland's bomb bay works. Now if you look directly under the wing, you'll see 3 rails and a massive door, and behind that door you will see the bomb bay itself. Due to the Sunderland being a seaplane, they couldn't put a bomb bay in the bottom of the aircraft, so the bomb bays themselves are actually mounted underneath the wing roots. A series of doors drop hydraulically and the bombs slide out on a series of rails where they're released. And this leads us to our first problem. Do you notice that there is now a bomb that has just magically appeared next to the aircraft? Well, this is the first bomb we dropped. Now, the major problem with the Sunderland's bombing site is that the initial targeting point on the bombing site before you have released any bombs is calibrated for where the bombs will hit after the doors have opened and the rails are fully deployed, at which point the bombs should release. And now this is correct, this is how the bomb bay should work. The problem is, the second you hit the spacebar, you are instantly deploying the bombs, which is ahead of the time it's going to take for the bomb bay doors to open and for the rails themselves to extend. So the bombs are always going to land early. Now the reason why the site jumps up so far when the third and fourth bombs release is because these bombs are releasing on a correctly calibrated sight. So the bomb sight is jumping from the too early position after the initial 2 bomb releases to the correct position after movement of the aircraft for the third and fourth bomb release, which when bombing from above 10,000 feet can throw off bomb accuracy by several hundred meters. Now this poses 2 critical problems for the Sunderland. First is your first 2 bomb releases are always going to be inaccurate. They are always going to fall short of where you think they will, and the second 2 will always go longer than you try and recalculate for after that release. The second major problem is if you only release 2 bombs at a time and you allow the bomb bay doors to close, at a later time when you go to deploy those 2 second bombs, they are going to have exactly the same problem as the first 2. They will just materialize in the air and fall short of where you expect them to. Now, as I've mentioned previously, this severely hampers the Sunderland's ability to high altitude or even medium altitude level bomb as it's designed to, because it is highly inaccurate, and it's inaccurate by a margin that unless you know what's coming and you adjust accordingly prior to dropping, it's possible you'll drop 2 bombs before your base target, 2 bombs afterwards, and miss the several hundred meter wide area bombing target that sits smack bang in the middle of the explosions. You just won't hit, nothing will land. But you would think that this problem would be lessened as you got lower to the ground. Well, it's actually not the case. It actually becomes even more pronounced, but we'll demonstrate that a little bit later. So anyways, moving on, after you've dropped your bombs, trying to return to base is an exercise in patience, to say the least. With you running the risk of ripping the Sunderland's wings off at anything above 400 kilometers an hour, your descent must be slow and steady. If you go too fast, the plane will overspeed, you will have trouble pulling it out without pulling G's, and those G's will cause an immediate wing break. If you don't pull it out, you will overspeed to the point where you rip your wings off. Throttle control on the Sunderland is a must to slow it down enough to actually get it into a position where you can potentially land. And the turning time, well, the turning time on the Sunderland isn't actually that bad. Actually, it's surprisingly maneuverable for an aircraft of its size and weight and engine count. So I've gone particularly wide of the runway here to allow a smooth deceleration turn to come in for landing, as the Sunderland surprisingly doesn't want to drop speed all that well once you get down to around 240, and you don't want to touch down that fast if you can avoid it. However, it is also worth keeping in mind that 240 kilometers an hour is too fast for your landing flaps, as I discovered here. Thankfully you don't need them to touch down, but you can't deploy them beyond around about 190. So any plans as using landing flaps as air brakes for your final slowdown are really out the window. By the time you can deploy them, you no longer need them. You're better to do the rudder wobble in order to bleed off your last speed, and remember to touch down perfectly centered without your pontoons touching the ground, and you will slide to a nice, smooth stop. So, after you've been repaired and reloaded, the Sunderland is immediately air-spawned at about 1,500 feet behind the runway, in which case you have all the time in the world to wind it back up to speed, but good luck climbing back to altitude. With the climb rate of only around 1,000 feet a minute when empty, you're not going to be getting to altitude all that fast. So your second run is likely going to be a medium to low altitude bombing run. However, the bomb sight is going to play up for you here as well. See, it's not just the internal bomb sight that moves around, the external one does exactly the same thing, but we'll get to that in just a moment. See, the Sunderland has forward firing guns, so here's where the fun begins. We can start trying to dogfight in this whale, except you'll notice an immediate problem. Every time I zoom in to try and line up a shot on this CR-42, the camera zooms in on the bomb reticle and not the gun sight for the aircraft. This means the absolute blast that is precision shooting of hostile enemy aircraft is significantly more difficult than it should be, as you cannot zoom in on your own reticle to line up those shots, and because of the nature of how the Sunderland flies, you're going to be wanting to shoot from a fairly long range if possible, so precision shooting is important. However, it becomes even worse when you consider that you might want to strafe ground targets in the Sunderland. I mean, it is a bomber, you could probably use it as an attacker with forward-firing machine guns. In fact, I imagine that's exactly what they were fitted for. The problem is you cannot precision shoot ground targets. You've sort of just got to put the reticle over, fully zoomed out, and pull the trigger and hope to hit. Which is ironic in a way, because this is precisely what you have to do with the bombs. Line them up approximately where you think the bombs are going to drop, hit the space bar, and hope they hit. Now once again here to demonstrate, and this is actually probably an even better demonstration as we are much lower to the ground using the external bomb sight, so we have a lot to compare against. As I come in to bomb these tanks, I'm trying to drop these 500 kilos directly ahead of these tanks. Watch how much the bomb sight moves on each bomb release. So I am for about 50 meters in front of my targeted tank, and the bomb's going to land about 30 meters behind at this altitude. Now I held the second bomb for a split second because I wanted to drop it on the road just ahead because I knew there were vehicles in there, which allowed the bomb bay to close and reset, and upon hitting spacebar to release my next bomb, the bomb actually fell in the forest, about 50 meters short of the road. But as I said before, I am partial to liking flying boats, and I do actually like the Sunderland, despite the fact that it is, well, it's completely inferior at the job that it's meant to do, and it's not particularly good at any other job either, but it is incredibly fun to fly. And this is why. Every now and again, well, yeah, that happens. And this brings me around to the final problem that I have with the Sunderland, and this isn't actually a problem with the Sunderland directly. The Sunderland is a flying boat, which is fantastic. I love flying boats. I would really like to put flying boats out on the Pacific maps, where I can land next to the carriers to get bombs. It would be very cool. The problem is, in the 30 odd matches I flew in this plane, in total, before and after the match that I'm showing, I have never seen a Pacific map. As close as I ever got to the ocean was the New Guinea map, where the Japanese forces start with the carrier and you start with a land-based runway. Or in some of the maps where both sides have a land-based runway, but there's a little bit of ocean down there, but there's no reason to actually land on it. I've never ran into a map with this plane where putting it on the water, which is the primary thing that it is designed to do, or the thing that it is designed to be capable of as part of its utility, would be something that you would consider doing for any other reason than because you can. So the results for the match, and in this particular one it's going to be worth looking at the entire team. Despite having an almost full team of Sunderlands, you'll notice that we only managed to kill 12 ground targets in total and drop 4.5 tons of bombs on target. I managed third place with 1 kill, 1 assist and 0.8 tons myself, which got me 14,562 silver lions, but only 650 research points, as, well, I was researching the Sea Venom with a rank 1 Sunderland. And you can see with that results card that it wasn't just something to do with my piloting that was causing the inaccuracy issues on ground targets. Everybody in a Sunderland was having trouble hitting things that were on the ground, with the top scoring Sunderlands almost always going full gunship mode against enemy fighters, which can actually be quite effective providing the enemy fighters are continually flying into your firing arcs. If they keep doing that and sitting nice and stable in comparison to the location of your aircraft, you'll have a really good time cutting down enemy fighters and laughing as their light machine gun fire rattles off your hull. That said, if you run into somebody who has a cannon, you're in a world of trouble. Now, 20mm and above pull the Sunderland apart in a real hurry, especially if fire is directed towards the wing routes. So, the Sunderland. If you have a Havoc, a Boston, a DB7, a Blenheim, or a Beaufort, you already have a superior bomber in the battle rating range of the Sunderland, a plane that will completely outperform the Sunderland in its ability to ground attack. But the Sunderland's got style, and I like it anyway, and it's a lot of fun. Not a particularly good bomber, not a particularly good heavy bomber, not a good high-altitude bomber, actually not really masterful at anything that it does. But at the same time, really enjoyable to fly for those moments when the enemy just does something stupid near you, and they get slapped towards the ground by a sky whale. Anyways, ladies and gents, thank you very much for watching. Apologies again for the condition of my voice. Hopefully it will not last too long. Click like if you do, subscribe if you want to see more. Fly smart, fly safe, and I'll catch you in the skies.